This is my second review in this series, and the work gets darker than before. Even though it is supposed to be a children's book, I think that Barker's proclivity for weird horror finally shines through. So a child can read it, but I wouldn't say that young of a child. And also an adult will enjoy it. So if you want to know more about this wonderful book, stay tuned. Welcome to Be Real Cultist, where I review books that I find interesting in the topics of religion, philosophy, history, and fiction. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, and comment on the video. Also remember to follow me on X and check out my merch store if you want to support the channel. Doing any of these things really helps what I do here, and I greatly appreciate it. Also, I will put in the pinned comments the link to my Amazon Associates store, where you can get all the books that I've reviewed here, and also there's a link for a general product section where you can get whatever you want that you usually buy on Amazon, and the channel gets a small percentage of it. No cost to you, and it helps us out. And again, we also appreciate that. Now, the book we're reviewing today is Abarat, Days of Magic, Nights of War by Clive Barker. It is published by HarperCollins in 2004. Now, like I mentioned in the first review, you can find in the Clive Barker playlist, this book began with the classic tale of a young girl going through a sort of portal to another realm, similar to Oz and Alice in Wonderland. But in this case, the portal is an ocean, which justifies the whole ocean island motif that I explained before. In this following book, the portal dynamic flips a bit, and it is about the return, which is another classic element that you find in these type of stories. Now, just to be clear, I usually try my best not to spoil the book itself by giving a lot of details, so I tend to kind of walk around the periphery of the book, but not really get into a lot of details purposefully. But I will go through some of the philosophical and theological concepts, which is usually how I do the reviews here. And for those that are new, in the bottom I always put a reference to a particular show note that expands on a particular topic or defines something, etc. So it's not necessary, but if you want to get more information, you will get it there. Now, this book is different than the classic girl through a portal type because there's a couple of twists in the motifs involved. And in this particular book, the author decreases a lot of the geographical angle that we saw in the first book, so that the focus is less on the world building and more on the characters, and a little bit of a theological component. Now, it is not very explicit, not very deep or complicated, but it is there. For example, the book mentions that the source of all existence is a form of a thread that kind of joins everyone together. Obviously, this seems to be a very clear reference to the Norns that you see in northern myths, the Norns that weave destiny together at the foot of Urðar, as it's called, the Well of Urðr, or also known as the Well of Wyrd. And in this story, you have another trinity, like the Norns, that kind of guide the story from the first book and the second. And what I mean by guide the book, it's that they're ever subtle presence throughout the books. Now, there are also a lot of clear references to the Bible, which makes the story also interesting, because even though this is an alternative world with alternative constellations and characters, and even the rules of this universe seem to be different, there is a lot of mirroring here with biblical conceptions and the idea of good and evil and the way it's presented as well, the villains, etc. They just have an Abarat mythological twist. To give you an example of a poem that I really liked, that's supposed to stem from poetry within the Abarat world, and it claims to be the favorite poem of the main villain of the story. Let me read that real quick.
Nothing. After a battle lasting many ages, the devil won, and he said to God, who had been his maker, Lord, we're about to witness the unmaking of creation by my hand. I would not wish you to think me cruel, so I beg you, take 3 things from this world before I destroy it. 3 things, and then the rest will be wiped away. God thought for a little time, and at last he said, No, there is nothing. The devil was surprised. Not even you, Lord, he said, and God said, No, not even me.
Now that supposedly is from an unknown author within the world of Abarat, and the book is called The Memoirs of the World's End, and supposedly is Christopher Carrian's favorite poem. But that gives you a very cool taste of the mood and also the relationship to Christianity that you see in some of these ideas. Now to me, my favorite aspect of the work are the different opportunities that the world gives Barker to create islands of wonder, which are greatly enhanced by his own spectacular paintings throughout. And that's really what shines in this book. It's all these beautiful and strange paintings. And it's very rare to have an author who can masterfully illustrate his vision. Although for what I've read online, it seems that he did the paintings before he even started the story, or at least there's an interrelationship there, which in some cases the paintings were there before he wrote around them. So that also makes it very fascinating. But I would say without the paintings, the work would be lacking. It would still be great, but it would be lacking a lot without those paintings. And again, a lot of the physical appearance of a lot of these characters is obviously very creative, very strange, but I do love them because of how gruesome and strange they are. And also because this light and darkness motif, the good and evil, is still primarily influenced by Christianity. And I mentioned this in other Clive Barker books, that it seems to be quite present in all his work. Now, I don't know Clive Barker's particular religious point of view. I'm just saying that just from reading his work, you can see that influence there. And I guess to all Westerners, this is inevitable, but it's still very interesting to see. For example, I'll give a quote here that I think epitomizes my point of this influence. Now, this is supposed to be from the Holy Book of Five Fifo, which obviously it's a funny name that he invented for the story, but what he says is wonderful. Quote,
Sent out of Paradise Garden for their sins, the first couple stole fruits from every tree they passed on their way to the gate, so as to spite their creator. And outside the garden, crouched against the wall, they gorged upon the fruits, eating one after the other, until their bodies sickened with the excess of it. And they puked them out, and the seeds of the fruits were spilled in the dirt. And from them came monsters of the world, who were born in filth, and never knew there was such a thing as love.
So obviously, first couple motif, but even this idea of the monsters, I've actually read in kind of old Christian lore some similarities with the notion of the origin of demons and things like that. So again, very cool to see that combination there, and how that world is somewhat of a reflection of the world where the main character comes from. Now, this book has one of my favorite chapters of all time, and I've read a lot of books, but the textures and the visuals and how it manifests is absolutely incredible. It is chapter 40, which is called A Tale of Endless Partings. And it explores alternative realities and the power of the mind to entrap oneself in there, and it is also deeply devotional in a strange way. But it is a story within a story. And it's a story about love, and it's wonderful. I don't want to spoil it, but it is a great story, and it carries the rest of the book through to the end, in my opinion. And yes, it is about love, but I think it's also about infatuation. So all in all, great follow-up on the first Abarat, and it is definitely worth getting. Now, I know he hasn't finished the series, and there's been many, many years that he hasn't written a new book. As far as I know, there are only 3 books so far, even though there are about 2 or 3 more books planned, and they even have the names of the book, but they've never been published and they haven't been finished. So I don't know if they'll ever be finished, but I'll get to the third book eventually and I'll review it here. But definitely the first one and this book in particular is great, and I will place it in the list of books that you can get on the Amazon affiliate link that I mentioned earlier. If you want to support the channel, I found it there. I'll place an edition that I found, but it is apparently difficult to get. So I suggest if you can, go in there and get it. And even if you're not going to read it immediately, but it is a great book to have. So hopefully you enjoyed the review. Please remember to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, and comment on the video. Doing all these things really helps out. I appreciate it. Thank you for being with me. See you next time.